welcome back to another episode of the Purple and Gold Table Talk, brought to you by the Kappa Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This week's guests are Brother Winston Tramble and Brother William Bill Ulmer. Brother Ulmer is a former director for Community Health Services in Hamilton County for 37 years. Brother Winston Tramble is a health coach here in the Chattanooga area with could you tell us your specifics again, Brother Tramble?
So I'm a strength coach with a background in mechanical engineering and neuroscience with over 14 years experience.
See, that's why I asked you to say it, because I knew you already had it ready. I know your whole picture thing. I know what you're about, but I don't really know how you introduce yourself, so I'll let you handle it a little more eloquently than me. I didn't want to be stumped.
I appreciate it, brother.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing great, man.
Slow motion, man. Slow motion better than no motion.
Hey, you said that. You said that. Well, this week's episode, we're going to focus on the health of minority communities and how it impacts the communities. So it's great to have both of you guys here. Brother Trample, as far as the sports community, but also just your wealth of knowledge, and Brother Ulmer, your extensive career in the health services in Hamilton County. I mean, you did this position longer than I've been alive. So you have a wealth of knowledge that we can't wait to dive into. So we can go ahead and just hop into our questions. So what are common health issues that minorities face?
Well, I'll just kick that off. And when you look at the leading causes of death, and in my area, especially healthcare, public health services with the Hamilton County Health Department, we always focus much of our services, and not just our health department, but the Tennessee Department of Health had the job of ensuring that all health departments throughout Tennessee that serve the 95 counties focus on some of the same things, and most of those had to do with the leading causes of death. And those leading causes of death are, I'll just mention a few, heart disease and cancer and stroke, diabetes, kidney disease. Also, you're looking at issues around asthma, which is increasing in severity among our populations. Obesity being another critical health issue that continues to rise, unfortunately, among our minority communities and our communities at large. But we'll talk a little bit more about our minorities community as we go on. But those are some of those. And then cancer. I have to mention cancer because cancer continues to be one of those leading causes of death among minorities in all of our populations. But there is some differences between what you see in our minority populations in terms of illness and death relative to what you see in our white populations.
Well, yeah, let's start to dive into that, try to see what some of those causes are. So how does income level affect health in minority groups?
Well, interestingly enough, and this is not to a surprise to most everybody, your income really reflects on your buying power. Your buying power in terms of where you live, your assets, what you can afford in terms of transportation or can't afford, what you can afford in terms of health insurance or can't afford. Your income is a very important variable that points so much to where we are with regard to our life's chances. I have had the pleasure of teaching at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga and still doing that, but there's one thing that in my sociology classes that I talk about, and that is life's chances. Life's chances. And life's chances are really important to everybody. We don't think about it, but when you talk about income, life's chances reflect on your income. Your life, anyone's life's chances have to do with someone's wealth, someone's power, and someone's prestige. And interestingly enough, income is a common denominator for all of those three variables, if you will.
Yeah. Would you like anything to add on that?
In regard to both questions or the most recent
Just the
one?
most recent question.
So my take on the most recent question when it comes to income levels and how that affects our health, the root cause of it is one, miseducation. So the minority community does face many assets or facets of miseducation when it comes to being able to not only advocate for yourself in the doctor's office and in the clinic, but also understanding the financial literacy aspect of how to be able to prioritize the means of our money. So a lot of times we're made to think that eating healthy or being healthy is something that is expensive, but in actuality, we have time to go spend that money on fashion for shoes and for clothes and everything, but at the same point in time, that's when we want to go and say that it's healthy it's expensive to eat healthy. And then to segue just a little bit deeper, I guess you would say, we have icons like, for example, LeBron James, who is continually publicized for his ability to invest over $1 million into his health, and now everybody seems to think annually. Yeah. So now there's the thought process of, okay, so it's going to take me $1 million to be able to be healthy, because we have a whole plethora of individuals in the youth who seek to be like this person. They seek to one day be in the position of that individual, but not understanding that individual didn't always have $1 million to be able to invest into themselves, right? So that's my short take on that.
I got you. So, given your experience as far as with specialty communities, to some of the ones that you work with, what are some barriers that you've seen minorities face when it comes to accessing healthcare?
Some barriers that I see, again, I just go back to the education. So I primarily in the special populations, I work with cardiovascular and chronic disease victims as well as the pregnant population. And not only do we not have updated sciences to the minority groups, but also we don't have individuals who truly are trying to assert themselves in positions where they can advocate for us, and then also empowering us to where we'll be able to go and advocate for ourselves. So when we do get off into these situations, for example, with diabetics, let's go and take it. Many individuals who are type 2 diabetics, if they've been properly educated, they wouldn't be in that position to begin with. But rather than educating them, because we know, especially when it comes to the pharmaceutical world, more education you give individuals, right, we want to treat them. But it comes to a point in time where we're not necessarily treating what's being diagnosed, we're treating the side effect of the current medication that they're on. And then it's a continual treatment process of side effect, side effect, side effect. So again, that main barrier goes back to miseducation and just simple lack of self-advocacy.
I'm going to segue just a second. You mentioned the pregnancy population that you work with, and we know that Black maternal health is a constant issue for not just the United States, but just in Tennessee alone.
Yeah, we suffer nationally. We suffer tens of thousands of injuries and death when it comes to the minority population, more so Black women, when it comes to pregnancy, especially because we have not had an updated scientific approach when it comes to actual birth. We're still going off of a European pelvic model as opposed to not only respecting, but also understanding everyone's physiological differences. So there are differences within the birth canal, within the vaginal opening. There are differences as far as how individuals want to actually go through a proper birth, right? So we have seen over the years that more things are being popularized when it comes to dualism, when it comes to midwives, at-home births. Yeah. And in actuality, that is a proper way to do things, because when we're looking at things from the standpoint of the hospital, and again, we're looking at it scientifically, we're not looking at it emotionally. If you take a woman and she's out, let's just say in the wilderness, or she has no access to a hospital, whatever the case may be, the natural position that she is going to get in when it comes to giving birth to that baby is going to be a squatting and or crouching position. So that is a position that you would want to emulate when it comes to the actual birth of the baby, being in a room to where things are dimly lit as opposed to the fluorescent lights and everything is so bright. So staying on topic with that, when we do have, especially in the Black community, we are misdiagnosed with ADD and ADHD, and having more of an understanding about the process that infant, that baby has to go through to be able to process this data, because everything that we see and do is data, right? So there's an overstimulation of the data that infant has to be able to process, and that could and usually does cause things to go south. These are things that we can avoid. These are things that we can also put things in place to where we can have better protocol when it does come to our women being safe when it comes to giving birth.
Absolutely. And I need to add on to that because
Well, you're about to segue. It kind of segued into my next question. I'll go to you on because it says, "How does discrimination impact the health of minority populations?"
well, it actually has a lot to do with access, access to the appropriate health resources. And for pregnancy that you spoke on, brother, it is critical that women, African American women, all women, frankly speaking, have early access to appropriate, prenatal care. And I'm just thinking about some of the statistics that I was looking at the other day. Unfortunately, African Americans are behind the eight ball. Our women are behind the eight ball. When you look at maternal and child health, Black persons are 2.6 times more likely to have low birth weight babies born, and 1.7 times more likely to have preterm babies born compared to whites. And a lot of that has to do with nutrition. It has to do with early access to prenatal care, taking the vitamins early, ensuring that you are healthy when you get pregnant. And drugs have a lot to do with that too. So, we're as a minority group, we're behind the eight ball. I mean, teen pregnancies. Now we are looking better in terms of teen pregnancies. But I remember years ago when I was at the health department, Hamilton County, data on teen pregnancies was higher than Memphis, Tennessee. And that was,
Surely was.
and that was
That's a substantially larger city as well.
and that was critical data. The health department initiated several programs to address that. We're not higher than Memphis now, but still our teen pregnancy rates are among African Americans and Hispanics are higher than the teen pregnancy rates among white population. So, we still have things to do. And in public health, and my brother's in public health, I called because he's looking at a lot of things that we should look at in addition to education. He mentioned that. Literacy, health literacy is critical for our populations. And when you look at African Americans, being able to see those who are health professionals who look like us, that's important.
Very much so.
And we are on the low end of that still. So, and Hispanics the same way. They'll do better if they had more providers who were Hispanic and can speak Spanish. To help them understand.
Yes, for the representation and also having people to advocate for them.
Yes.
Now, I know, Brother Tramp, I know you've done work as far as with teens and adolescents with sex education as well. Do you want to speak on that?
So I'm a licensed mental and sexual health educator for inner city students. So some of the things that we talk about outside of understanding proper communication, boundaries, standards, when you are communicating, how to be assertive, passive, aggressive, so on and so forth, and differentiating those things. But also, we are very scenario based when it comes to how we interact and teach the kids. So teaching them how to allocate resources, teaching them how to properly go through phone calls when it comes to calling the clinic or calling the hospital, understanding how to set up an appointment, understanding how to be in a position to, again, advocate for themselves, because you're not always going to have somebody holding your hand to be able to do so. Going over the anatomy and physiology of a male and also a female, going over the various body parts, just so they have a better understanding and not approaching it from a fear-mongering standpoint to where a lot of the things that I had to grow up seeing in school, especially with sexual education, when it was just putting up on the screen diseases and trying to scare you away from it. At the end of the day, this is how people reproduce. And we have so many teen pregnancies and so many individuals getting put in situations that they can easily avoid because we aren't taking the time to be able to educate. So one of the things that I do as a black man is I put myself in those positions so these young kids can see a healthcare professional who does look like them, and looking like them not just by skin tone or skin color, but then also by my appearance to some degrees, because these inner city communities, they do share some of these feats that they see on me right now, whether it's me having tattoos or me having gold teeth or me having locks or dreads or whatever it is you want to call it. My appearance is on purpose, right? I do that so individuals who do come from those areas and those locations, they understand that they still have an opportunity and that your appearance doesn't have to be the limiting factor as to why you can't receive XYZ resource, education, service, so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Sticking to the topic of the youth,
Yeah.
what health problems are more prevalent in minority children?
Well, that's huge.
That's loaded right there.
It is. And I would say this: obesity amongst our youth is really out of bounds. I mean, it is seriously, out of bounds. 38% of white persons are obese. 49%, almost half of the African American population, many of those are children, are obese.
Now, are we speaking about obesity in terms of BMI, or are we speaking about obesity in terms of actually being overweight? Because those are two different things, and that's something I want to comment on as well.
Very good, very good. And obesity in terms of being overweight, so many of us, will judge ourselves and others, by appearance. All right, and body fat. When you look at BMI, you're going to look at you're going to look at people in a certain way. And I remember well that when I've dropped my weight after I retired.
Looking good, brother. Looking good.
Well, thank you very much. But my weight even back then was I thought I would weigh about 193 pounds, but my BMI was out of whack. Even at that age, weight rather. I'm down now, but my body mass is down. I look slimmer and all of that. So the way we look at each other, as healthcare professionals, as he mentioned, you can look at one's BMI, and let's look at the science of it, okay? But appearance, John Q. Public doesn't know about BMI, right? They look at appearance, Your children look like they're little fat kids running around, well, something to say about that. Health literacy is critical, and we do need to do a lot more about educating our populations about health literacy. What does BMI mean? How do you fold that into the appearance syndrome that we have for looking at people to make a determination of whether someone's big or not, you know what I'm saying? So there's a couple of things we need to think about in terms of that.
Oh, I'm about to get to cooking, everybody.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about BMI, we have to understand the origins. So BMI was created by a man named Affedt.
Yes, he was.
And BMI originated somewhere between the 1830s to the 1850s, and BMI was not originated. One, he wasn't even in the science field. He was a mathematician, number one. BMI was originated not for per individual, but it was made for insurance companies to understand how they need to charge per household, right? And that's something that we're still using BMI. BMI was originated off of not only racist origins, but also sexist as well. And that's a prime reason why I don't refer to it at all. And then Furthermore, just speaking anecdotally, I'm 6'2", 220 pounds, and my BMI is apparently really high, but I only have 15 pounds of body fat on me holistically. So one thing that BMI lacks is it does lack addressing lean body mass. So when it comes to utilizing BMI and having that as a measurement to justify if someone is or isn't healthy, that is something that is very skewed. And then also, Chris, going back to the question or going back to the topic about something that the youth faces when it comes to a lot of these challenges that they're going through, one of the prime things is body dysmorphia. And that is something that we need to not only address, but we need to commonly address, because your appearance is going to be dictated, one, off of how you see yourself and how you see yourself, and even when you're not looking at yourself. So that's a phrase or a term called body schema. So how do you see yourself even when you're not able to look at a reflection or a mirror, right? So being able to understand that body dysmorphia is a thing, and not only do we need to be more encouraging when it comes to our kids and being more involved with being uplifting about their appearance, but also putting them in positions to where they'll be able to grow and be successful by means of, it is okay for you to go and work out. It is okay for you to look the way that you look, as long as you can't go through a process trying to get a body if you don't love who you are to begin with. Right. And that's what I'm going to end with that, because I know we have to move on to the next question.
We might be able to double back around to
No,
that.
for sure.
But since we're talking about obesity, how does obesity especially affect minority communities?
In what way?
You tell me.
Okay, cool. I like that. Well, obesity affecting minority communities. I mean, we're in and out the doctor's office and the clinics like crazy. You understand what I'm saying? And then continually having to go in, and rather than, one, there is a difference between an MD and also a DO, so a medical doctor, and also a doctor of orthopedics. And that's that's something that many people don't want to talk about, but I'm about to light it up right here, right now. So there is a difference between people who pursue to be a doctor, who actually take classes learning how to program strength and conditioning exercise for the human body, as opposed to simply just having solutions when it comes to medication. So understanding who you are going to, differentiating between an MD and also a DO, is going to be very critical when it comes to how we're going to approach the process of going from being obese to not being obese. So that's one of the things. And then also when it comes to obesity affecting the Black community, even when it comes to, for example, I guess let's use fast food for example, right? Every community or Black community that we see, they have something fast food on the corner, and if it's not on the corner, it's within what? Walking distance, because we understand usually in the city, many individuals are not going to have a car. But then on the contrary, when we do look at our counterparts, whether it's the European white people, whatever, we do see that those healthier options are made readily available for them, and that's a main thing on how obesity affects our community. It's the resources that are made readily available for us.
Right. And many people talk about, in Hamilton County, Chattanooga here, the presence or lack thereof of grocery stores.
I was just thinking that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That provide fresh vegetables, nutritious foods and all that at reasonable cost.
Right.
Very important. And I know in East Chattanooga, there's still dialogue about trying to get that grocery store very close to where our house is. Yeah, exactly. It's up and running, and that's a struggle. But it's access to those things that helps us to be healthy. And when I say access, it's not just having the kinds of foods there, but having them made available to us in a way that we can afford them.
Right.
Affordability is also critical.
And location.
And location. Somebody said location means everything. So much, and it's true. We've got history. Our parents, our grandmothers, and sometimes we have to fight some of those nutritious, some of those some of those food preparation formats that we grew up on, and sometimes we have to change. And it's not that they are nasty. They taste good. I love my greens. I like my ham hocks. I love my fried pork chops and all those things, man. I tell you, but moderation.
You got to prioritize.
And you have to prioritize, exactly. So again, health literacy, knowing what makes you the way that you are. What can you do within the realm of possibilities, given where each of us is, that might help us to improve our health status?
Well, are there any comparisons regarding obesity to, things like, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, high blood pressure, things that do plague the Black or minority communities more than others?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at cancer, when you look at heart disease and hypertension, kidney disease and stroke, diabetes, all of those. And when you look at the data, we can recite the data, but it's going to take folks like Winston and myself and others, to communicate in ways to our community where they would understand. I mean, we can talk all day about the fact that heart disease among African Americans is 30% higher,
and that's cap,
than whites.
Cap.
You know what I'm saying? And we can talk about the fact that blacks are 4 times more likely, if you will, to die from hypertension than our white counterparts. We can talk about the fact that black persons are 3 times more likely to die of kidney disease than our white counterparts, or from stroke, 1.5 times more likely to die from stroke than our white counterparts. Well, all that tells a story. And someone would say, well, why is it that we African Americans, if you are so much more likely to have those illnesses and then to die from them? Well,
and we're not.
A lot of it has to do with our access to nutritious foods, and then you get into cost, the economics of it. You get to also location of where those healthy foods are, and how much are we able to get to those healthy foods. And I mean, if you ask most people, if you ask them the question, well, if you had access to X, Y, and Z that was really nutritious and a better brand of food and better cooking utensils, and better ways to grow, how you can grow your own gardens, food gardens in your backyards, and all those things. I mean, all those things would tell a story about about the yield in what we're able to have for food intake.
You kind of segued into my next question on your own, which is what are some ways to reduce health disparities in minorities? And so that's one thing, changing access to, more quality, healthier foods through, community gardens. We've already kind of spoke to education, things like that. Winston, anything else you want to chime in on?
Stop fabricating case studies.
Yeah.
We need to stop doing that. So let's just go ahead and air that one out too, because I came to get jiggy for a little bit, right? Every case study is not valid. Every case study is not accepted as scientific literature into the database, right? So when it comes to the case study, we have to look at who funded it. We have to look at the sample size and population size. We have to look at how many of those individuals from start to finish actually made it through the whole case study as well. And we have to look at the reasoning or the purpose for the case study. So those are one of the things that I wanted to be able to address with that. Another thing that I would like to go and address when it comes to the, I guess we'll kind of go back to the obesity aspect as well. Again, I can't emphasize enough when it does come to the body dysmorphia. And the only reason why I emphasize that so much is because for individuals to continually speak on our physiological differences and make us out to seem as if we are inferior by way of our living status, when in actuality, again, it's because of the resources. It's not because of this is just something genetically that is going to happen. Like, for example, black people being lactose intolerant. That's cap. super, super cap. And the reason why I say that is because it's
For
not.
those who don't know, cap means not true.
Oh, cap is definitely not true. I'm sorry. But when it comes to the genetic modification that dairy undergoes, those are the things that our body isn't agreeing with. It's not necessarily us being lactose intolerant. So again, there's just certain things that are being put out there for the masses to be able to obtain and listen to that are 100% false. But until we have conversations like we are now, even on a larger scale, that misinformation is going to continually circulate. So
Gotcha.
That's my part of that.
So you spoke to body dysmorphia, which is mentally how we view our bodies, and that kind of takes me to my next question, because we're about to have to wrap up here soon, but we definitely want to hit on this. How does the rate of mental illness in minorities compare to that of the general population?
Vastly, because if you don't feel accepted in society, then there will be a process of trying to remove yourself, whether you're actually inflicting harm or whether you go and do what you do, trigger warning. But when it comes to the mental health aspect, our mental health is at this point in time is a bit of a half and half, and I know it's going to kind of upset some individuals, but that's what I'm here for, to upset people and make them think. Mental health obviously is a very real thing, but then mental health is also a trend. And the reason why I say that is because at a point in time, we did not have all these technological resources and innovations to be able to obtain XYZ education and or being able to just have an understanding of what it is and what it isn't, right? But now we are at the point where we do have more means to be able to differentiate not only between what's right and what's wrong, but also to be able to communicate. And that's something that just falls under you being able to be accountable for making your own decisions and making your own choices. So the reason why I go and I bring that up right here, right now, is because when it comes to someone wanting to communicate how it is that they're feeling, more times than not, they'll go like right to the extreme. And when they go to the extreme, they live off in the extreme. You have to learn how to communicate, not only communicating with yourself, but being able to communicate with the individuals around you, and those individuals actually being willing to listen.
When you say it's a trend, what do you mean by that?
When I say it's a trend, so when we started having the trigger warning, when we started having the suicide rate and also the divorce rate increasing, that was around the time of COVID. So 2020-ish, that was around the time that those, as well as divorce rate, those rates began to skyrocket. And they began to skyrocket because people were crying out for attention. And then you had individuals who saw that from social media, and that was around the same time that things were beginning to be monetized. More individuals were crying about more people were proclaiming that they had mental health issues, but there was nothing actionable as far as them doing something to combat that, right? So it was just, let me address it. But when you was being presented an opportunity to have a way to combat that, they continue to decline it. And the only reason why I say that is because I work with individuals in the inner city to where I have seen that firsthand. I have seen firsthand how we will provide somebody with the tools and the resources, but there is a comfort in having the attention, but there's not a comfort in being able to get to a comfortable position.
That's a good point. I'll just say one thing, and then we're about to wrap up. Mental health is a huge issue. And that's not just with African Americans. That's throughout every population and subpopulation group. One of the concerns that many of us in public health have had for many, many years is that mental health resources have been fragmented. And those that have existed out there have really done not that great of a job, if you will, to helping the community to understand how they can be helped with the resources. And they've done a relatively bad job of extending themselves in the community to help persons to understand what resources they can avail themselves of. Mm-hmm. And many people, don't want to even be considered to be seen going into a mental health resource. Mm-hmm. There's a stigma, mm-hmm. And that's huge.
And I think that's kind of what nobody asked Winston why it's considered a trend. Because what I've seen, and even my own experience and the experience of others, is a reshaping of the mindset about your mental health. You know, we go see doctors for everything, especially us who, you know, came up playing sports. We go see orthopedics all the time. And as we get older, we have health issues. But there's those same doctors who are there for our mind and our issues. And we, especially we as Black people, we've had the stigma about mental health as an issue, but there's also a history behind that of, you know, why we distrust the medical injury doctors and things like that. You don't want to get certain labels attached to you just due to, you know, racial history. But I think that's what we've seen recently, especially on the men's side, as far as, you know, men, especially Black men, suicide rates and things like that increasing, and then the trauma and PTSD that, you know, we as a people go through growing up, and especially those in impoverished communities who are constantly like underdiagnosed for PTSD, basically growing up in war zones, experiencing trauma, things like that, that they're growing up with. And so I think that's what we've recently seen in our community as far as the reshaping of that it's okay that you're not okay, and it doesn't make you any less of a man to admit that, and it really makes you a stronger man to say, I'm vulnerable, I'm weak, but I'm going to do something to make it better.
Absolutely.
Like, so tell us about the Minority Health Fair that's happening next month.
Sure, my pleasure. This is going to be the 23rd annual Minority Health Fair. And this health fair began back in 2002 with one of the fraternity's older brothers who has recently passed, and that is Brother Dr. Gear. And he actually started it in his church as an effort to get men to look at and after their own health. So initially, this was a men's health initiative begun by Dr. Gear. Shortly thereafter, he engaged the support of one of the members of the Kappa Alpha Psi, Irvin Overton, and at that time, it became a joint interest, and it began to mushroom the idea of a minority health fair for the general public, not just men, not just members of Dr. Gear's church and that congregation, but all of Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And that mushroomed to an event that originally was held at the Brainerd High School. And that drew an enormous number of people, surprisingly so. Men were coming from all parts of Hamilton County and Chattanooga, and different ages and all, and the screenings that were held for those men were well received. And then that grew. It grew into a point where we, as the Omegas and Kappas, began to jointly convene this initiative every year. It began to be an annual Minority Health Fair. We eventually were asked by the Delta Sigma Theta sorority to have them to be also part of this event, bring women in, and to expand the screenings to the screenings that would be of interest to women as well. So that took another leap, if you will. And so somewhere around 2010, 2012 or so, the event became the annual Minority Health Fair, sponsored by the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and the Delta Sigma Theta fraternity. Looking for a source to manage our funding, the Southeast Tennessee Health Consortium, which was a foundation. We brought them in to manage the dollars that we'd be getting in from sponsors, and et cetera. And so it became an event that was hosted by literally 4 entities. The Omega Psi Phi fraternity, the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and then the Southeast Tennessee Health Consortium. So since then, we've been rolling strong, having at Eastgate, the town center, over 4,000 to 5,000 persons coming with well over 100 providers nurses, doctors, and other medical and health personnel to address the needs, to do the screenings, provide health education. UTC joined with us. They're one of the annual sponsors as well now. So we've done a lot over the last 23 years. And we're looking forward this year for this health fair to be again at UTC for the third time. This year it's going to be at the arena, McKenzie Arena. Some persons call it the Roundhouse.
That's right.
Yeah, and so we're looking forward to having it on Saturday, August the 3rd, from 9 o'clock until 1 p.m. At 8 o'clock that morning, however, we're going to be having a health walk or run, if you will, walk or run. And it will begin at the arena in front of gate 2 of the arena. And there's been a path that has been marked off to walk around in the general community of the UTC and then back for about an hour. And then the health fair literally begins at 9 o'clock with a grand opening with our mayors, city county mayors helping us to open it up, the leaders of each of the fraternities and the sorority having words to say, and then the screenings and health education activities begin. So it's going to be big. We will have entertainment there. We'll have refreshments there. We're going to be doing a lot of great things and to help people to look at their health status and do things and provide information that will help them to improve their health status. It's huge for our fraternity. The Omegas is huge for the Kappas. It's huge for the Deltas. So we just are happy that we're going to be about the work of doing this one more time. You'll listen to hear for advertisements on G93 and other stations. We're inviting our Hispanic community and neighbors to come also, because La Paz is going to be a part of this event, and we'll have interpreters, translators be there as well, and we want to make sure that all who come to this event can be well served, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your race. So it's just not about African Americans. Our white population can come as well. Our goal is to close the gap in healthcare.
That's right.
And to do so by ensuring that everybody has equal access to health care, and that people's health literacy is improved. You know what your health goals should be and could be, and also to ensure that you're able to pass this information on to your children, for those who are older, your relatives and neighbors, and et cetera. So that's the Minority Health Fair that we are so much looking forward to on August the 3rd from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock at the UTC Arena, commonly called the Roundhouse.
Fellas, definitely appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys for hanging with us. Another episode of the Purple and Gold Table Talk, brought to you by the Kappa Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. See you next time.